Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hi, I hope you enjoyed our walk in Lake of the Woods yesterday. That's the first time I actually mentioned where I lived, where I moved to. I hope I don't have anybody knocking at the gate, because we're viral now. I'm kidding. So, awkward. What I wanted to talk about again today is restraint, because I think restraint is really important in my life right now. So, yesterday I talked about what it feels like to need to restrain. And it's like the difference between restraining from physically doing something and and mentally and emotionally restraining myself. And it is restraint. It's like I was thinking after I recorded, I'm like, is it restraint when it comes to the mental and emotional side of keeping myself from doing something? It is. It's still restraint for me when I'm trying to restrain my mind from going to the places that it's used to going, unhealthy places that it's used to going. So, in before I got sober, there was no restraint, none, period. If I wanted something, that's what was going to happen. Um, no matter, there was no, I don't know, there were no boundaries. There was no boundaries as to what I would and wouldn't do if I wanted something. So restraint wasn't something that I ever practiced. And when I got sober, that I mentioned yesterday was the introduction to restraint. Um, and it was, okay, I want to do the things that I used to do, but I actually need to fast forward the tape now. And that's where the restraint was even possible. If I just focused on my wanter, then I'm still going to do whatever it is I want to do. So, you know how for the past few years since I've been doing this podcast, I always say turn off my wanter. That's where my sobriety really started to take form and build a strong foundation, was that I was able to give it a name. What am I doing? Because I didn't want to just say, well, now I can't do this and I can't do that. Kind of like I keep saying in stroke recovery, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. Um, but sticking to the sobriety side of it, what I realized is I have a decision that I need to make. Every time I want something, I don't have to have it. And that's what I thought. I thought that if I wanted something, I called it willpower. I thought that I had to have it. I didn't have any willpower. So that lack of restraint had consequences. It had mental and emotional consequences, because I was not letting anything stand in the way between what I wanted and me. So I learned in early sobriety, like, I get to make a choice. Every time I want something, I get to fast forward the tape. I get to think about, is this healthy for me? Is it supporting my sobriety? Is it not? Um, I mentioned, I guess it was a week or two ago, about does this, like every time I'm approaching a decision or an action, to ask myself, does this bring me closer to or further away from sobriety? You can replace anything with sobriety. Does this bring me closer to or further away from God or faith or trust or honesty? You can replace it with anything, but you get the point. Like, it's pausing and looking at this is what I want, but is it good for me or is it bad for me? And if it's not good for me, if it's bad for me, then I get to make the choice to not do it. And it seems like I am gonna suffer, right? It seems like if I don't give myself what I want, then I'm gonna suffer. But what I have learned over time, and it takes time and practice, what I've learned is if I do restrain myself from things, that quite often something better is available to me. There, if I continue to just do what I want, then where is the growth there? Um, we had a great topic today that I was really contemplating wanting to talk about, but I really wanted to proceed with restraint, and then tomorrow I'll talk about the next topic. But and I just made my mind went go blank. It's hold on. Let's look. The topic that we're going to talk about tomorrow is being wrong. Being wrong. So I wanted to stick with the restraint. So knowing that what I have in front of me is optional and what I want, that's what I was going to say. There's no growth in always getting what I want. If I restrain myself from these things that I want, there's often growth in that. And some of you may be like, that's bullshit. It's not. I swear it's not. So in stroke recovery, restraint has become this bigger challenge. It's something that just consumes my every day, all day long, is that I the consequences of lack of restraint now are direct physical consequences. And that's very different than the emotional and mental consequences when I'm constantly getting the things that I want. Adding that other layer of having direct physical consequences, you would think makes it easier to restrain myself. And unfortunately, it's not true. Um, I'm probably not giving myself enough grace for all the things that I do practice restraining myself from on a daily basis, but it's still really, really hard. So, yesterday we were out on that walk, and I was trying to show you how I feel like how moving my head bothers me the same way that if you're watching a video and the camera is moving like that. It's like this weird kind of vertigo feeling. And after a while, it'll make you nauseous and your head will stop hurting. I don't know. I almost can't even remember what it's like to not have a headache and not be nauseous. But yesterday I was just feeling like, I wonder if this would work. So I videotaped it without looking at the video while I was walking, or I never would have been able to do that. I just showed the camera facing forward so that you would get an idea of what it's like to walk with this vestibular disorder. Um, and I was talking about how difficult it is and how I can't, um, if I hear somebody to my left or my right, I restrain myself from looking. And you can imagine that I'm not perfect at that. It's very difficult. And so I need to give myself grace. Like I need to, it's progress, not perfection. All of those slogans that I learned in AA are very applicable. in my stroke recovery. All of it is, and that's what this whole freaking podcast is about how I apply my sobriety program to my stroke recovery. Um, Knowing when to stop is hard because just like when you're sitting in front of a box of chocolates, a box of bonbons, and you're like, well, I really shouldn't have one more, but I'll just have one. The consequences of having too much of a good thing is not necessarily um, immediate. And often, like, if I have too much candy or something like that, it's not until I wake up the next day that I feel terrible. I don't feel terrible in the moment. I feel wonderful in the moment, just like drinking. I feel wonderful when I have the drink. It's the consequences that come later. And that is exactly how my vestibular disorder treats me. The consequences of me watching a Instagram video is not immediate. It's really odd, but it comes like minutes later, and that's when the nausea comes. And I did exactly that this morning. I've been starting to order Stitch Fix because it's a great way to shop for somebody who is unable to browse in a store or browse online. So they send me a box of clothes that match each other, and I get to try them on and pick what I want and what I don't want. I send back, and I've really been enjoying it. But once in a while, it texts me to go to my account and check off things that I like, and I get all caught up in it. And then so this morning, that's what I did, and then I felt nauseous by the time that I was done. So it's just, gosh, it's so hard. Like restraint is so hard. But this topic of restraint came up first in church a couple weeks ago. And it was talking about, some of you know that I'm on this faith journey. I've never been a regular at church or anything. So I'm learning. I think of it as like a educational experience. So what I was learning about, we're learning about the plagues, and I was learning about the second plague. And forgive me if I just completely make it sound so elementary, but that's how I'm learning it. I was learning about the plagues, and one of them was about, gosh, I can't remember now, that the Egyptians, they worshipped something. I can't remember what it is. And those of you who are very familiar with the Bible are probably screaming at the, at the your device right now to tell me what it is, but I can't think of it. So, oh well, I'm just gonna drive you crazy. And so the plague was that they gave that God overwhelmed them with the it's an animal, overwhelmed them with it so that it's like supposed to um replicate, no, it's supposed to, my words aren't coming to me, it's supposed to represent like unrestrained freedom actually suffocates life. Like freedom without limits can feel chaotic. Too much of a good thing. You know, that's what it reminds me of. That's not what the pastor said, but that's what I kept thinking of is too much of a good thing. And it's a ridiculous for me. To compare too much of a good thing to with my disorder, but that's what it is. If I look at one Instagram video, which is what my psychiatrist and I agreed that I can do, is I can look at this one, I can follow one Instagram video, and look at it, and then sign off. After I upload my podcast, I'm allowed to look at one. And that is enough that I don't feel nauseous, relatively speaking. I don't feel nauseous if I look at one. And it's like it's quite literally too much of a good thing suffocates my life. It just it makes the fire go out. It makes me not happy. It makes me in pain. And and so that's what I was thinking of when the topic of restraint came up in church. And what the pastor said, he was talking about awareness versus wisdom. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, I am aware that I can't do certain things, or that I can't do certain things. But awareness doesn't seem to make me stop doing it. I need to gain, for me, because I learn everything the hard way, I need to gain the wisdom of what happens if I go too far. That's for me, that's the difference between awareness and wisdom. Wisdom helps me act on the awareness. Wisdom helps me to choose restraint before the pain in my head forces restraint. Um, Awareness notices the edge, and wisdom allows us to step back from the edge. Um, so, restraint has been a skill I'm still learning. And I have always struggled with knowing when to stop. Just yesterday, I was eating some Nerds clusters, and I was eating them and listening to my book last night. And I was like, okay, that's enough. And I zipped up the bag. Of course, I have a family size bag. And I put the bag down, and I was sitting there and I was like, nope, I'm not done yet. And I picked up the bag and I opened them up and I kept eating them. Um, because I don't know when to stop. I don't know. There are no repercussions for me having more nerds. The only thing that could possibly happen is I'm going to wake up with a headache. Well, just imagine, just imagine me sitting there with a headache, eating the nerds clusters and thinking, well, I could stop, or I could possibly keep going and then wake up with a headache when I already have a headache. So I'm like, F it. I'm going to eat these nerds clusters. I feel like I restrain so much in my life that sometimes I just go overboard when I can, I'm very much known in my house for, well, my husband knows this, that if I like something too much, I won't allow myself to have it at all. Okay. This sounds weird, but if you can relate, then fabulous, because I don't know if there's other people. I would imagine I'm not unique. That's what I always say. So the best example I can give you is glazed donuts. I love glazed donuts. And I love glazed donuts so much that I do not allow myself to have glazed donuts. Because if I have one glazed donut, I cannot stop. I have to have another glazed donut. And I will eat the glazed donuts until I feel sick. So I don't allow myself to have any glazed donuts. So can you relate to that? I, it's very much like alcohol. I can't have just one. So if any of you are listening and you're not an alcoholic, that's what it feels like to be an alcoholic. To me, that's my opinion. it feels like I have to have another glazed donut. I cannot have them in my presence. If I have one, I have to eat the whole thing. So, yeah, it's something I'm still learning. And when it comes to like the other thing that I was thinking about, and the pastor talked about this too, was he talked about, well, let me just tell you what it made me think about rather than what he talked about. What he was talking about was identity becomes performance if you don't rest. So this is what I was thinking. He's like, I was thinking about my podcast and how I used to record every single day. And when I first started the podcast, I even remember my old boss that I retired from. Um, I remember him saying, you really need to be careful. Maybe you don't need to do it every day. Maybe you can just do it once a week or once a month or something like that. And I was like, no, recovery's every day. I have to do it every day. And so fine, right? Nobody can stop me from doing what I want to do. Get it? What I want to do. So I started doing it every day. And I was recording every day, no matter how bad I felt. And there were times that I was having, I was very symptomatic and I would still just keep going. I remember in a couple episodes, I had the drop attack feeling, and I just kept talking. I just kept going. And it's because without that restraint, the purpose of me showing up and doing the podcast was lost. It was completely lost. I was rebuilding my identity through this podcast, but that identity was turning into performance. And that's what I was getting from what the pastor was talking about. When rest is missing in our lives, identity becomes performance. So overdoing it is more than physical. It's tied to like proving myself and producing. Like I had a goal, and the goal was, it was unreasonable for somebody who is newly disabled with chronic pain. And I did it anyway. Honestly, I'm looking back at the past like 3 years, and even though I'm on the fourth season, one of the seasons was only a half a year. So that's why it's like 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that. When I look back on those times that I was recording that I was so sick, I don't know how I did it. I really don't. I don't know how I did it. And that is an example of obsessing over productivity, which is what I do all the time. And this comes back to restraint. It's like as soon as I find something that makes me feel good, I can't stop. So the podcast I'm recording every day, my projects, my hobbies. I mean, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, I was sharing with you all the hobbies that I'm working on right now. And when I get so obsessed about productivity, then it's really pulling me away from purpose. It's pulling me away from that identity that I'm trying to rebuild. And that identity cannot include this tendency to overdo it. I need my identity and my purpose to be built very methodically around rest. Um, I need to build it very methodically around what, like, I have to draw that line about what makes me feel good and where do I go overboard and it becomes performance of who I think I should be. I was going to sleep last night and I was thinking about I was thinking about all the things that I want to do, that I want to sell on my Etsy. And it's like, that's not why you're doing it. That's not why you're doing it. Restraint for me is a way to also bring me back to my purpose. Restraint pulls me out of obsessions and back into intention. And helps me to refocus on like, what are my motives? Why am I doing this? Why am I painting this big ass picture beside me? I'm still painting it. Follow me on Facebook and you'll see the latest. I've been posting each day that I touch it, how it looks. And I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it's a mess right now, but I'm pretty happy with it. But why am I painting the picture? I'm not painting it to sell it on Etsy. I'm not painting it because I want to get money for it. And I'm honestly not painting it so that I have people tell me how good I am at painting, because it might be terrible. I'm painting it because I need a picture over my bed and I wanted to paint Autumn, my Weimaraner, jumping into a lake. And I worked with ChatGPT to create the picture for me, and now I'm painting the picture. Like, why am I doing this? And when I pick up the paintbrush, is my mind aligned with my purpose or not? Um, Restraint keeps my recovery sustainable. If I don't hold myself um, accountable for pushing myself too far, then I'm losing in a lot of different ways. I'm losing physically, I'm losing emotionally. Um, I really have to practice it every day, every day. And restraint throughout this journey of stroke recovery, restraint has felt a little bit like punishment. And I need to remember why I'm doing it. I need to look at myself, and I mention this every now and then, look at myself as my own mother and know what's good for me. Look back at me, what's good for me, what's not. This is not good for you, so you should probably go lay down. You probably should not clean the second bathroom when you already cleaned one bathroom. I just cleaned the bathrooms. Before I started recording, I cleaned my bathroom. Um, and so know that I'm not telling you that you can't clean the other bathroom because um there's something you're not a good person, or because that's where my head goes. My head is like, well, I can't do anything, I can't do anything. And it's not true. Like, I'm not punishing myself for saying that I need to rest. If I was still working my full-time job, I would be overjoyed if somebody told me, stop doing what you're doing and rest. But it feels like today in stroke recovery, that restraint is shrinking my life. But what it's really doing is protecting my life. And so I need to tune into that wisdom. And when I'm starting to feel fatigued and my head is hurting a little bit, then tune into the wisdom and not just be aware of my limits, be aware of my limits, but I need the wisdom to honor them. And so with that, I'm going to close up shop today. I have a vestibular support group that's going on right now, and I'm missing it, and I like to listen in. So, thank you so much for listening today, and I will talk to you next time.